You're welcome to today's program, side events on the Commission on the Status of Women, which at least seeks to amplify the voices of women and children, women and girls, with disabilities, towards a review of the Beijing Plus 30 declarations. We would like to thank you very much for having time to join us today and to listen to us, and then also make your own contributions to ensure that the voices of women and girls with disabilities in Ghana and globally are actually heard during this review process. So about the CSW 69th session, the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action was actually adopted within the Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing. That was in 1995. A policy was developed as at that time, which tend to look at achieving gender equality and the empowerment of women worldwide. That landmark document served as a global movement for women's rights and has significantly influenced international policies and frameworks that are related to gender equality. So narrowing it down to our own local Ghanaian context, we're looking at how the needs and the peculiar needs of women and girls with disabilities are equally included during especially this review process. And by that, we'd like to thank you again for joining us. We have great women, mostly with disabilities today as speakers, who are here to not only share their own challenges in navigating the obstacles that they have faced throughout their lives to get to the positions where they find themselves. But they are also here to throw more light on the voices of the challenges that so many women and then girls with disabilities globally are facing in ensuring that they get equitable access to education, to healthcare, to positions of leadership and into the political spheres, and how even climate changes equally affects their lives. So at this point, I would like to call on, we would like to receive a keynote address from our very own Executive Director of the Voices of Women and Children with Disabilities and Caregivers of Children with Disabilities. It is a Ghanaian not-for-profit organization that is geared towards ensuring that the voices of children and their caregivers also are equally heard, are equally incorporated into policies, into programs, into policies, and then in strategies that are laid out. And it is against that backdrop that we are actually here today to equally add our voices during the 69th session of the Commission on the Status of Women. So at this point, I'll call on Madam Juliana Ifia Mahmoud to give us the keynote address. Thank you. And welcome. Madam Juliana, you are welcome to today's session. We are very grateful that you've taken time out of your busy schedule to be here with us. So please, you can continue.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so grateful for the opportunity given to me to give the welcome address and purpose for this occasion. So, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, most importantly, women and girls who are present and to whom we are gathered here today, I would like to, on behalf of the voices of women and children with disabilities and caregivers of children with disabilities in Ghana, welcome you all to today's session. Today, we are gathered here to amplify the voices of women and girls with disabilities in assessing the Beijing Plus 30 Declaration and its platform for action. It's been 95 years since the Beijing Declaration came into existence during the fourth session of the Women of the World meeting. This declaration seeks to empower and ensure equality of women of all backgrounds at all levels. However, you would all agree with me that looking at the progress of the Beijing Plus 30 Declaration as of now, women and girls with disabilities continue to face multiple discrimination, stigma, social exclusion, coupled with cultural barriers and attitudinal barriers, which hinders their full participation and inclusion in mainstream activities. Moreover, the issue of stereotyping or the intersectionality between gender and disability has worsened their situation, and hence most often their voices are limited. And so as we commemorate the 95th anniversary of the Beijing Plus 30, or the 30th anniversary, Forward Ghana, in partnership with African Women Development Fund, has organized this program to highlight some of the challenges that women and girls with disabilities in their diversity face in Ghana and globally. This gathering is not just for us to read the document and discuss, but it is for us all to assess the progress and of the declaration and where the declaration has fallen short, and to make recommendations or amendments to it. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here to learn, to listen, and to strategize on how to ensure that the rights, freedom, and participation of women and girls with disabilities are assured at all levels, both national and international. There are a lot of challenges that women and girls with disabilities face, which includes gender-based violence, unemployment, lack of accessible education and training, poverty, economic disenfranchisement, and a lot that limits their full inclusion in mainstream society. And so the purpose for us this afternoon and morning, depending on the time zone, is for us all to elaborate, to debate, and to listen and to share our ideas and opinions on how we can all help to champion the plight of women and girls with disabilities across the globe. So, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of our Ghana and African Women Development Fund and the OPDs in Ghana, I welcome you all to today's session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Madam Julie.
Hello, for some reason I cannot hear the speaker. She's muted.
Oh. Okay, so sorry about that.
We haven't heard anything.
Yes, I had muted. I'm so sorry. So I was introducing the person who will be giving the keynote address as the Director of Capacity and Movement Strengthening at Women Enabled International. She leads the execution of the organization's strategic priorities aimed at ensuring that women, girls, and gender diverse people with disabilities have the information, resources, and support needed to fully realize their human rights. And that the stakeholders that are key to this have the will, resources, and capacity to make that happen. She is also the organization's thematic point person for gender-based violence. She's a dyslexic lawyer with over 10 years of experience in disability rights and intersectional human rights advocacy. Prior to joining Women Enabled International, she served as a staff attorney in the protection and advocacy for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities program at Disability Rights New York. So please, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Madam Anastasia Holokoff to give us the keynote address. Madam, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Beijing. And thank you so much, Barbara Ghana and the African Development Fund and all the OPDs who were involved in organizing this really important event. I'm really honored to be invited to be your keynote speaker, especially given all of the incredible other speakers we have today. So I'm looking forward to getting us started and really hearing from all of our other speakers today. So I wanted to get us started by just reminding us of the incredible achievements that have been made that have got us here today. Women with disabilities, particularly African women with disabilities, have always been and continue to be the leaders that we need to lead us through both the rights for us as women, but also as us as disabled women and people with disabilities generally. That was true when the Beijing Platform for Action was developed. It still remains a groundbreaking document. And 30 years ago, women with disabilities advocated extremely fiercely to get a seat at the table because, as I'm sure is no surprise to anyone here, we weren't included initially. We weren't made a priority in the negotiations around the Beijing Declaration, but we fought to be there and fought to be a part of that conversation. And even though the discussions and outcomes are mentioned disability, they're not highlighted in the document. And that's something that we as a movement have continued to prioritize in part of the processes like the Beijing +30 review and all the work that has gone into implementing and realizing the rights of the Beijing platform. So, for example, I know many people in this group were also involved in 2021 in the context of the Generation Equality Forums, which reignited the spark of the Beijing platform, with feminists with disabilities once again having to fight hard to be included in those conversations. And ultimately, we were privileged to be a part of the forming of a group came together to push back on that exclusion and lead the way in ensuring that the Beijing Platform for Action reviews and implementation are inclusive through the Generation Equality Collective and developing key documents for what it means to make accessible gender spaces like the Feminist Accessibility Protocol. I wanted to start with a bit of that history and really reminding us about how women with disabilities have always been the leaders in the Beijing Platform for Action and will continue to be as we look forward. And African women continue to be the leaders that we need for this movement. And I think that's why this event is so important, because leading from the experiences that have happened on the continent, the experiences that have been had by OPDs in fighting and realizing their rights throughout the continent are really essential to guiding us as a movement in moving forward and being able to meet this moment. We know that everything is a gender, race, and disability issue, and yet now more than ever that disability piece is being dropped. And we need women with disabilities to be at the forefront of those conversations to ensure that all of those intersections are identified and prioritized and recognized as part of the work that we're doing. For example, the care agenda is something that I know many in this space have already been involved in, and organizations like VAWA Ghana are so essential because they bring the leadership of women with disabilities, both as caregivers themselves, but also as women who do and may require care. And ensuring that we are leaders in those conversations is really critical to making sure that those agendas are moved forward in such a way that reflects all of our intersections and don't rely on stereotypes of women with disabilities or people and children with disabilities as recipients and not rights holders themselves. I'm sure it's no surprise to anyone here that globally and locally we're facing a backtracking on gender and disability issues. Women with disabilities are the leaders that we need at this moment as a gender movement to be able to meet. It's essential that we stand in our power, stand in our leadership, that we as a movement listen to leaders with disabilities, African women with disabilities, to be able to meet this moment and learn from what has already been achieved both locally and globally for how to meet this global backlash. Women with disabilities have always been fighting for their fundamental rights, both at home and globally. And we know better than ever anyone what it is like to face those pushbacks and scaling back of our rights on every single element of our lives. And that's why we really need you to be the leaders of the gender movement as it responds to this moment, as it responds to this moment at CSW, and will continue to be part of our lives moving forward. And that's because we as a movement have never not had to make to these fights. So we know what it means to prioritize the most marginalized and excluded, and we are the ones who are going to be able to identify what are the techniques to show what has worked in our countries, what has worked in our movements, so that the gender movement can really move forward in an intersectional way. We know how to manage these complex political and social situations that really touch in every part of our lives. We know how to make local solutions inform global solutions in environments where the economics are, we're told repeatedly, like the basics of accessibility, they're too expensive, they're not in the budget, and yet we always find a solution. And that's why women with disabilities are essential in this global moment to lead the gender movement forward on how to respond. Because this is the time to be bold. And we know how to be bold because we've always had to fight for that seat at the table, like in Beijing and like we are today. We know how to define the agenda from our perspective, and we need to make sure that we are the ones at the table, making sure that gender, race, and disability are always on the agenda and always being taken under consideration. We know what it means to make sure that we are bringing everyone as part of our movement. And that's why I know that following the leaders who are going to be speaking with us today is what we need to be able to stand up to those who are really coming to take us back on our rights and take us back from all that we've achieved and prevent us from moving forward and fully realizing our rights. This week, I know many of you have also probably having conversations with colleagues and really asking ourselves, how are the global movement, can we really meet this moment? And I've said repeatedly, we need to listen to women with disabilities as leaders. So how are we doing that? We're already seeing that done across the continent in Africa, globally, but just to leave us with some kind of key takeaways that I've been hearing from colleagues of what it means for us as a movement to be leaders globally. And that's really working collectively on our advocacy agendas, working together to make sure that we are aligned, that we are working together as the leaders, women with disability leaders from Africa, from Asia, from Europe, from all over and working together to ensure that we are aligned and working collectively. Next is really working collectively to make sure that we're engaging in that cross collaboration, that we are ensuring that we don't allow this moment to divide us, but rather recognize that all of our rights are integrally intertwined. We know that as leaders with disabilities. And so it's up to us to make sure that we fight and make sure our voices are heard and that we are leading the cross collaboration rather than waiting to be invited in. And next is making sure that we continue to honor our values of ensuring the most marginalized in our communities is supported and ensure that they're at the forefront. We're seeing here where I'm based in the US with the cuts in Medicaid that as I'm sure is no surprise to anybody, those who are most marginalized, those who have the most extensive support and communication needs, people with intellectual and psychosocial disabilities, their needs are they're being cut, their services are being cut, they're most at risk of being institutionalized. So us as a movement, making sure that those most marginalized in our community who are already most skilled and used to having to fight for the most basics of their rights, that we are helping to support and help them lead our movement as they already are, but making sure we provide them a platform and not allow the difficulty of the moment to allow us to divide ourselves internally. So I just wanted to leave with two last pieces of advice that was shared with me yesterday from one of the sisters from Africa, Robina Alambuya from Triumph Uganda, who was talking about what we needed to meet this moment. And she said two things were critical for us. One is relational mentorship, which is that we need to make sure that we are supporting each other. We are calling each other up and saying, where are you? What do you need? What do you need to keep going? You are the leader we need, reminding ourselves of our power, creating platforms that we can support and build each other up. And second is enabling one another to take breaks. This is a hard moment. I know for many of us, this is not new. This has been a hard moment for decades and decades. And enabling one another to take breaks and then keeping that door open so when we're ready to step back in or roll back in, that door is still wide open for you is critical to making sure that we can both sustain our movement and also be supportive and caring for one another and enabling each other to take breaks when we need. Everyone on this event today are the leaders that we need. You on the African continent are the leaders that we need to meet this moment. And I'm really excited for the rest of this event and to listen to each of you today and learn what we need and how to consolidate the ship into the future. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Madam Anastasia Holobov. I think one thing that for the few days that we've been here, it seems to run through almost all the events we attended is the issue is on mentorship. They need to actually mentor each other. They need to be there for each other and then help one another grow. And the fact that if we stand as individuals, usually you do not go far. But when you have that collective voice, then you're able to project the voice even louder and then higher. And then you go quite far and then you are ahead. So by this, I would like to say thank you so much for that beautiful address you just gave. And also, I would take that opportunity to come back to retract a little bit and also let our participants or our audience know the people they are actually listening to today. So my name again is Patience Atipoka Atwa. I'm the Programs Officer of the Voices of Women and Children with Disabilities and Caregivers of Children with Disabilities in Ghana. I'm a woman with a physical impairment. I work with a walking stick. And Madam Juliana Ifia Mahmoud, who gave the purpose of our gathering also, is the Executive Director of VOA Ghana, and she is a woman with visual impairment. And I think, Madam Anastasia, you have already told us, I think by the use of we, everybody knows that, yes, you have a disability. So she has a visual impairment as well. And the speakers who would be coming to do the discussion will do that. Okay. So at this point, we would like to take a word from our founder, our sponsors, the very people who have supported us to be here today, to be part of the 69th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, to give us a word of solidarity. That is Madam Gifty. Madam Gifty, and please, if you are here, you're welcome. You can give us a word or two.
Okay, thank you so much and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gifty and I work with the African Women's Development Fund. I'm happy to be part of this meeting. The African Women's Development Fund is a feminist fund that seeks to resource, support, and nurture African women's rights organizations and feminist movements to sustain themselves. It is also a Pan-African grant-making organization that supports the realization and fulfillment of African women's rights through funding of autonomous women's organizations on the continent. In addition to providing grants for programmatic work, AWDF provides support to actors to engage in strategic spaces such as CSW and other policy spaces. The Beijing Plus 30 initiative, which is happening now, marks the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, which was adopted during the Fourth World Conference on Women in 1995. This landmark framework aimed to address various issues related to gender equality and the empowerment of women globally. Beijing Plus 30 is not only a reflection or a commemoration of the past, but a rallying call for action and accountability. While progress has been made, it remains fragile and even unseen, especially for the most marginalized women and girls. As you may be aware, AWDF is not an implementer. Therefore, as we commemorate Beijing Plus 30, AWDF has provided financial support to a number of movement actors to take active part in the various activities being organized both at countries level and at the global space. In addition to this, AWDF is organizing side events at CSW 69. In terms of the financial support, AWDF has supported over 30 women's rights organizations across a number of African countries, such as Benin, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, DRC, Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Madagascar, Morocco, Namibia, Mozambique, Uganda, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. The various organizations are organizing varied activities during this period to ensure that women's issues are represented at this strategic meeting. Some of the activities being implemented include a review of the Beijing Declaration to assess the gains, the challenges, and the way forward. There are also projects to advocate for LGBTQ inclusion by amplifying LGBTQ persons' experience in public health discourses at the conference. Specifically, WILDAP Ghana will present the West African Network on the Africa Women Course Group in sharing the outcomes of Beijing at 30 consultations at the conference. There's also an advocacy for the ratification and domestication of the Maputo Protocol, particularly for women's empowerment and gender equality. There are other organizations implementing different activities, as earlier mentioned. It is expected that all these activities will support strengthening exchanges, networking with NGOs and regional and international institutions. It is also expected that it will help in expanding the horizon for many organizations by forming partnerships with other feminist organizations and to build sub-regional synergies for the advancement of the rights of women and girls. It will also help to build connections and networks, share innovative ideas with like-minded organizations, and promote women's rights. And finally, it will help enhance networking, experience sharing, cross-learning, and partnerships to inform best practices and strengthen advocacy skills in promoting the rights of women. And so AWDF has provided the space the support to enable various organizations organize activities, such as BOAC is doing currently. We encourage partners to organize activities to ensure that their voices are being heard and the key at the tables where the key decisions are being made. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, madam. And thank you. Seriously, I think the whole of the African continent will say we are grateful to AWDF for all the support in ensuring that the voices of women and then girls across Africa are actually being held, and that during policy making and then reviews such as this as well, their voices are equally not left behind. Okay. Okay, so at this point, we are going to roll into our panel discussions, where we're going to talk about the issues on intersectionality of gender and then disability as it relates to women and then girls with disabilities. To help in doing so, to bring out the issues and then also teasing out key recommendations of actions, I would like to, at this point, introduce my guest, who will be joining us to do that discussion. So, Madam Rita, Dr. Rita Udo. She's a lecturer in the gender and then migration and development experts. Dr. Udo is a lecturer at the Simon Didong Dombo University of Business and Integrated Development Studies, an affiliate of the Department of Development Studies. She teaches courses in gender and development, community mobilization and development, and population and development. Her research interest focuses on gender development, migration, and social policy. As a gender equality and social inclusion expert, Dr. Udo collaborates with community-based organizations and non-governmental, not-for-profit organizations to strengthen their capacity in gender equality and the rights of women. She conducts gender audits, assessments, and gender-sensitive monitoring and evaluations for and with civil society organizations. Currently, she is a gender inclusivity officer on a project grants exploring AI for development in Africa. Beyond academia, she engages with women-led farms, listening to and chronicling their lived experiences on how climate change impacts their farming activities and livelihoods. So, Madam Dr. Rita Udo, you are welcome. Our next guest is Madam Beatrice Equia Mahmoud. She is the founder of this very organization, Voices of Women and Children with Disabilities and Caregivers of Children with Disabilities in Ghana, and also the program officer with Sight Savers. So Madam Beatrice Equia Mahmoud is a passionate disability inclusion feminist and advocate with lived experience of blindness. She has over a decade professional experience in advancing disability rights in Ghana and at the global level. She's a development practitioner and a social worker. Madam Beatrice currently works with Sight Savers Ghana under the Economic Empowerment Portfolio. She is a board member of Voices of Women and Children with Disabilities and Caregivers of Children with Disabilities in Ghana, an organization championing the rights of women and children with disabilities in Ghana. Prior to this, she worked at the World Education as a disability inclusion advisor and at the Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations. Madam Beatrice is the brain behind the formation of the Great Vision of BOA Ghana, as we have mentioned, and continues to advance the intersectionality of gender and disability, disability justice, and inclusive economic empowerment. She has influenced policies, legislations, and initiatives such as the Marrakesh Treaty, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability Alternative Reports as well. She believes that if all persons are given equal and equitable opportunities, they will be able to obtain the functions they desire. She's a member of the Pan-African Leadership Institute. Madam Beatrice Epia Mahmood, you're welcome. Going forward, we'll introduce Dr. Augustina Nami. He is the head of Department of Social Work at the University of Ghana. Dr. Nami holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Economics from the University of Ghana, a Master's in Social Work from the University of Chicago, and a PhD in Social Work from the University of Utah in the United States of America. She had previously taught at the University of Northern Iowa in the United States of America for 4.5 years. Dr. Nami has a distinguished track record of scholarship in teaching, research, and extension service. She teaches a range of areas in social work, mostly with macro-level practice and policy orientations at both undergraduate and graduate levels. Dr. Nami's research focuses on disability, mental health, and intersectionality of vulnerabilities, gender, social policy, and poverty. He has conducted research locally and internationally and published over 35 peer-reviewed journals, articles in high-impact journals, and book chapters. Dr. Nami has also presented her work globally. Dr. Nami serves on several ad hoc and statutory committees at the University of Ghana. She extends her services to the community and serves on several civil society and faith-based organizations, both locally and internationally. Dr. Nami was a member of the technical committee that reviewed the Persons with Disability Act 715 of Ghana to align with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. He has also consulted for several organizations, including the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Okay, so by this, Dr. Nami, you are very much welcome as well. And I believe we'll be having a very enlightening, a very educative conversation going forward. So by way of intro, our conversations will border around women and girls with disabilities and then poverty. It will also look at women and girls with disability in the area of reproductive and then mental health. We'll also be looking at women and girls with disability in the area of power and then decision making. And then lastly, we'll talk about the effects of climate change or the climate conditions on women and girls with disabilities. So, to go straight to the point, Madam Beatrice Epia Mahmood, I would like to ask you first, from your decade of work on inclusive economic empowerment and then poverty reduction among women and girls with disabilities, what would you say are the key barriers or the relationship between women with disability and poverty?
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, so hello. Okay.
All right, sorry for the network hurdles. So, as I said earlier, this discussion will not focus too much on academics. I believe in sharing sharing some lived experiences and also that of my peers, women with disability. So as the world takes stock of the Beijing Plus 30 Declaration, it calls for memories, a call for reflection and great commitment. So acknowledging the efforts being made globally in terms of legislation, enactments, and policies. For example, the Beijing Declaration, the Maputo Protocol, CEDAW, then Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the African Disability Protocols. These are all great policies and that guides our conduct. Then at the national level, yes, we also appreciate the efforts being made by the government of Ghana in trying to bridge gender inequalities. So some of the efforts that we would applaud is the fact that currently Ghana has the gender equality law, which seeks to bridge the gender parity. It also have a gender policy. Then in terms of interventions, we also have the common fund. This common fund is basically meant to support the initiatives of persons with disabilities. Then we also have the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty Fund, which is more of cash transfer. And we also have the Persons with Disability Act. I must say that of all these interventions, women with disabilities have not yet liberated from the cankers of poverty, and therefore we continue to wallow in poverty day in, day out. And factors fueling this include lack of disaggregated data. So in as much as we have these fine policies and interventions to bridge the gap, there's no disaggregated data on women and girls. And so this makes it difficult for our people to benefit and also to take stock of the progress that we are making. Another barrier has to do with the lack of targeted. As you are known, women with disabilities are among the invisible, and therefore they need to consciously target and include them. And this is also missing. In addition to this, economic employment remains a key barrier. As you may be aware, as for information picked from the UN Women, 26.2% of women with disabilities out of the entire poverty ratio, 26.2% are women with disability, and 10.7% are women without disabilities, and 21.7% are men with disabilities. This shows clearly that women with disabilities continue to wallow in poverty. First of all, women with disabilities are often discriminated when it comes to employment. That one will say we give equal opportunity. An practical example has to do with a job advert being placed and a woman with hearing impaired applying. Meanwhile, there's no provision for sign language interpreter. Or a woman with physical impairment has applied. Meanwhile, the interview is taking place on the 10th floor. These are some of the barriers that definitely limits us. And also taking into cognizance that because of our disability in the African context, a woman with disability cannot go and walk on the street to sell pure water, to sell things on the street. So that woman would need to be properly established. And from the survey that has been conducted by the Voices of Women and Children with Disability, in their quest to assess the progress of this Beijing Declaration, it is evidence that over 80% of women with disabilities have not had secondary education before. Building on that point, education continue to militate against women with disabilities liberation from poverty. The cost and also inaccessible of educational facilities. Growing up as a girl with disability, for instance, I needed to travel from Kumasi to the northern part, skipping about 3 regions before I could go. When I'm going, I need to go with my parents. So you know the extra disability cost. My parents will have to send me and bring me back. And when I'm on vacation, they have to come for me. This will be difficult for a woman with disability who also has a child with disability, or a woman with disability who because of certain circumstances cannot do this. So education continues to be a barrier. And not only the formal education, but education in other aspects like skills training and other trainings. So you realize that the common trade area for women with disability is basketry. And today, in this technological era, basketry is outmoded. Even if they are still doing basketry, they are doing it in a more stylish manner. Another point that I would want to discuss has to do with resources. From my years of experience and growing up from the north, women with disabilities do not have access to family property and lands. And unfortunately, because society perceives us as credit unwealthy, they do not give us opportunity to access credit. So even though the district assembly common fund is there, a woman with disability is given less than $100. This $100 can buy things, but it doesn't provide market. And one interesting revelation was that a woman told me that, well, they've given me a fridge, but I can't walk to go and walk to sell the pure water. So the fridge is there. They can come for their fridge. Just because of time, to also say that accessibility remains a key gap. So access to information and infrastructure and communication. If I'm a person with hearing impairment, I'm selling, how do I communicate? If I don't have a store that people will come, I will need the support of some persons, which is not often budgeted for. And to conclude, so again, referring to the research conducted by VOAC Ghana, it is shocking to hear that 85% of women with disabilities continue to wallow in poverty. And it's also shocking to hear that 75% of women with disabilities go through lots of discrimination and stigma. And this affects even their businesses, their employment, and other prospects. Again, caregivers of children with disabilities, that is 75%, complain of extra disability-related costs and the fact that they would have to abandon their work to provide care and support to children with disabilities. And just to also say that the girl with disability is not also exempted. Access to dignitary kits, including sanitary pads, remain a critical barrier. And lack of educational materials and accessible washroom facilities continue to exclude girls with disabilities from school, thereby breeding the cycle of poverty. Thank you. Over.
Thank you so much, Madam Beatrice, for that elaborate explanation and then taking us deep into the heart of the issues when it comes to the challenges women and then girls with disabilities face, not only in Ghana or Africa. I think most of these issues, they cut across, is a global issue. So next, Dr. Udo, you have a lot of experience when it comes to developmental works. And with that, I would like to find out from you, what would you say, or what are the issues when it comes to women and girls with disabilities in accessing healthcare facilities or healthcare services? We are looking at the areas of even mental health, We are looking at menstrual hygiene. I think Madam Beatrice mentioned just a tip of it. And then we are looking at maternal care. If you could ask me, I have a lot of experiences or challenges when it comes to that. What would you say are the challenges, the key issues when it comes to women and girls?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. So women in general face challenges with sexual and reproductive health. And this even gets worse when it has to do with women and girls with disability. Currently, some of the barriers that women and girls with disability face are accessibility. As we already know, in Ghana, for instance, we have a law that says every building should be accessible. But if you should take a stock of the hospitals and the health facilities in this country, you would notice that most of them do not have accessibility in terms of people who use the wheelchair. They cannot access them. Hospital beds are not designed in a way that can meet the needs of certain disabled women. We also have facilities not having interpreters, people who can aid deaf and dumb people. And so this makes it very difficult for women and girls with disabilities to access the health institutions. The other one also has to do with lack of awareness. A lot of healthcare providers and practitioners do not know about the needs of persons with disability. And so if a woman even is pregnant and she should go to the hospital, some of the health officers, they just open their mouth, oh, how did she get pregnant? People think that women and girls with disability are asexual. They don't have sexual desires. They don't have, they cannot even give birth. And so it makes them to be neglected in the health space. They don't take care of their peculiar needs. We also have the issue of poverty. In fact, a study conducted in Kenya showed that 67% of women with disability live in poverty. And as a result, they are not able to meet their health needs. The study even showed that they are not able to, pregnant, disabled women were not able to access antenatal care because they do not have the money to pay for it. In Ghana, we have the National Health Insurance Scheme, but if you have lived in Ghana, you know that the National Health Insurance has some challenges. And so even if you have subscribed to the National Health Insurance Scheme and you need to obtain health services, you will still have to pay. And so if you are already poor, then it makes it very difficult for you to access the health scheme. And the last thing I want to talk about is the fact that most of the women and girls with disability are not involved in policy. When it comes to designing policy, designing laws and all that, they assume that women and girls with disability are passive people. And so we need to take the decisions for them on their behalf. And once this happens, their needs are not accounted for. And this worsens their situation. And let me add one more thing. They don't also have access to sexual and reproductive services and materials. We have a lot of people, let's say someone who is deaf and dumb, if there is even a sexual and reproductive health material, that material mostly is not made in an audio form. We only have it in a print form. If there is someone who is blind, the person, we don't have the materials in braille form. And so that makes it very difficult for them to access such information. And also people have certain stigma and certain negative perception. And so even if we have a woman or a girl who is disabled and wants to seek information on her sexual and reproductive right, people will begin to say, what has disability got to do with this? You are disabled, why are you thinking about sex and all that? So it makes it very difficult for them to access material. Even if they are available, it is not accessible to them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Dr. Udo. Thanks for delving us into how the issue is when it comes to accessing healthcare services. At this point, we would like to hear the submission of Dr. Augustine Anami. So this is an area usually we don't even seem to even recognize that women and girls with disabilities are affected. That is climate changes, or even in emergency situations, you find people running helter-skelter, they are putting things in place, but do we even sit back to question, to ask ourselves, how are these people also being catered for? So with that, I would like to give Dr. Augustine Anami the opportunity to let us know how the climate changes, how the changing nature of climate actually affects women and then girls with disabilities.
Thank you very much, Madam Station. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, please, we can hear you.
Great. So thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon. And it is, I don't know whether good night or good whatever to be here. Right now, I am in Australia and it's about 3:30 a.m. Anyway, so I just want to begin by saying that definitely gender and disability do not only intersect, but they interact. And as a result, increase a lot of vulnerabilities for women and girls with disabilities.
Yeah, Doc, could you please speak a little louder for us? It seems your voice is a little far back.
My voice is far back.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, please, you can speak. You can go on.
My voice is far back.
Okay, it's better now. Thank you.
Okay, it's better now. So what I'm saying is that definitely gender and disability do not only intersect, but they interact. And when they interact, they increase vulnerabilities for women and girls with disabilities. So when it comes to climate change, women and girls with disabilities are even more impacted. And I want to explain this by giving you a scenario. So let us assume that there is a flooding situation. And then we have a pregnant woman with a disability who uses a wheelchair. And then we have a woman who is pregnant, of course, does not have a disability, does not use a wheelchair. Okay. Who can easily be evacuated. So let's assume that this woman with a disability, wants to get out of the home. The home environment itself is not accessible. So the woman may struggle to get out of the home. And when she gets out of the home, the walkways are not accessible. In Ghana, we practically don't even have sidewalks. So this woman may struggle to get to the bus stop. And let's assume that she's even able to get to the bus stop. The buses are not accessible. Let's also assume that the woman is able to get to a shelter. The shelters are not accessible, right? And as for the shelters, it's more than just physical accessibility. So this is a woman with a disability who is pregnant and uses a wheelchair. Okay, so the staff at the shelters are likely to begin to, discriminate against this woman and also stigmatize against this woman. So probably you will hear them say, oh, who impregnated this woman? Who did this to you? Or they will say, a woman with a disability, why did you get pregnant? Or they will say, all sort of things against this woman with a disability. And let's assume that this is a woman with hearing impairment, and she also struggles and gets to the shelter. How do they communicate with this woman? Okay, now let's go back to the scenario of a flood. Let's also assume that the response team is able to get to the scene. How are they going to respond to a woman with a disability who is pregnant and uses a wheelchair? Would they even understand how to handle persons with disabilities, let alone a woman with a disability who is pregnant? Do they understand They know what to do so that they don't hurt those people. Okay. Also, issues of emergency preparedness. The information that is given, is it accessible to everybody? The women with hearing impairment, the women with visual impairment. The information, is it accessible to them? These are all critical issues that affect women with disabilities in cases of disasters, and this is related to climate change. Now, let me even add on to all of these scenarios. So, because of the issue of people not even understanding issues of women and girls with disabilities, and because of the challenges that they face in terms of access and so on and so forth, this could lead to more vulnerabilities in terms of violence, exploitations, and all of that against women and girls with disabilities. Research already shows that women with disabilities are about 3 times, more likely to experience gender-based violence compared to their counterparts without disability. That is already high. But in cases of natural disasters, the risk even increases. Now, let's look at issues of access to clean water. Climate change is making it extremely difficult for us to have access to water these days. Before, you can have water at home, or a next door neighbor, you can get water from a next door neighbor, or even in the community, there could be a borehole or something, or a well. These days, it is not like that. People will have to travel miles upon miles to get water. Now, take the woman with a disability who is blind, the woman with disability who uses a wheelchair, the woman with a disability who uses a cane, a walking stick, a water, you name it. How easy is that going to be, right? So what happens is that they have to pay for water. And the earlier speakers have already alluded to the fact that the majority of women with disabilities live in poverty. So what this means is that these are people no very little education, mostly unemployed, very little source of money, high disability related costs, and now also they have to pay for water. So these are very serious issues that women with disabilities encounter when it comes to climate. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nami. So we'll come back to you in about 2 minutes, Dr. Nami, so that you throw a little light on the issue of political participation and then leadership. So right now we'll go back to Madam Beatrice. And then on that issue, what do you think, give us, how is it like when it comes to political participation and the leadership positions? Because usually it is at those opportunities that you even get to even voice your challenges and ensure that they are equally included. What are the challenges?
Thank you very much. So I must say that leadership and political participation is generally society have tagged it a no-going area for women with disability, which should not be the case. So let me just say that growing up as a woman with disability, I remember having completed the university. I told my sister that, I want to be an MPO. Then my sister said, hey, I don't bring trouble to this community. You already know the stigma and discrimination that we are facing. So how do you venture into this? And from that day, I've never thought about it. I don't blame her because being born to them, society saw it as a bad omen, and that there was nothing good that a woman with disability can do. So I must say that, as the title of this project says, our voices matter. Our voices as women with disabilities have been excluded from leadership, from positions of responsibility, for managerial, and even in politics. And one of the barriers has to do with lack of resources. Yes, so knowing that going into politics is very expensive with limited resources and the economic situation of women with disabilities, it pushes us back. And one gap that have also identified has to do with mentorship. You're a woman with disability, and because of society stigma and discrimination, people don't even want to be your friends, to mentor you, and the like. So you are left on your own to journey through the world, and that also limits our ability to network, to participate, and even to nurture our ambitions. And so these are some of the issues in terms of the leadership. And I must say that for us to achieve gender parity and ensure that the voices of women with disabilities are also included, then there's the need for targeting, where women with disabilities are targeted among women without disabilities. For instance, in Ghana, we are striving hard to bridge the gap between of political and leadership representation. Currently, we have 27% of the appointees being women. But we are yet, over 2 decades, to see a woman with disability being accorded a leadership position, for us to also demonstrate our inherent abilities within us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam. So, Dr. Naomi, could you talk a little, just in like 2 minutes, give us what your thoughts are when it comes to political participation in leadership? And when you are done, I would like for you to just give your key recommendations on political participation, and also how climate change equally affects women and girls with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. So when it comes to political participation, I think my sister Beatrice said a lot already. You know, one of the major challenges has to do with attitudes. Okay, so let's assume that the woman with a disability even has a lot of resources to contest for elections. How many people will be willing to vote for the woman with a disability? There will be, some of the things they will be saying, right? What does this person have? What can this person do? Can this person even think for herself? And how is she going to be able to think for us? Can this person even take care of herself? How is she going to, represent us? Attitudes. I keep on saying, and I'll keep saying each and every day, that, that is the major source of exclusion for women with disabilities. So the other factor has to do with access. So if you're a person with a mobility disability, yes, of course, access. You have to go around, right? Yes. But at a place, is our environment accessible? Because you can't campaign from home. You have to go around and campaign. Okay. So those are some of the things. And of course, finances, yes. And I think as I said earlier on, attitude. Over the years, we haven't had many men with disabilities in parliament. Yes, that is fine. But at least we have had 2 people that have, gotten that. I don't know whether to say privilege or whatever to say. We have had Dr. Dana that was appointed Minister for Chieftaincy Affairs. And then we, last year also had one appointed as a regional minister, none of the women with disabilities. Even though we wish that the numbers of even the men increase, but yes, for now, none. There's no woman with a disability who has ever been appointed. Is it that
Hey,
women with
Lydia, what
disabilities don't have the qualification?
Good
Is that
afternoon.
what it is?
Open it you.
You know, so then you're asking yourself these questions. And if it is not attitudes and attitudes and attitudes,
All right. You.
and attitude, then what is it? So that is what I want to add on to what Madam Beatrice talked about. And you wanted me to speak to something.
Yes, I think you captured everything. The recommendations, you captured almost everything as it relates to climate change, as it relates to political participation.
Recommend.
Yes.
Okay, for climate change, I'm not sure. I haven't even spoken about the recommendation. But what I
Okay.
would say, yes, what I would say about climate change, in terms of ensuring inclusive climate resilience adaptations and how we can involve women with disabilities is that we have to take intersectional approach. We have to take intersectional approach or use intersectional approach, you know, in policy, climate policy development, climate program development, and so on and so forth. And what do I mean by intersectional approach? And I think I remember that the keynote speaker spoke about the fact that even amongst us as women with disabilities, that population is not a unique population. We do have some women with disabilities who are more vulnerable than others, you know. So intersectional approach brings on board everyone that matters to the decision-making table. So women with disabilities definitely will have to be part of decisions when it comes to disaster response planning, when it comes to recovery and climate adaptation programs. Why? Because they have first-hand knowledge of their needs. And yes, of course, they live experiences and they can help us understand how we can better address those issues. And I always like asking questions so that people will reflect. Who understands what it means to be a woman with a disability, a single mother with a disability, a mother with a disability, a single mother with a disability with a child, single mother, so you have child or children. You don't have a job. Who understands how it feels? You get up in the morning, you don't even know where you find food for your kids. Who understands that? A woman without a disability can try something, can easily go get pure water bags, go to the streets. It's easy. They can be there, they can sell. For you, the woman with a disability, assuming you use a wheelchair, getting out of your home alone is a huge challenge, you know. So we have to try as much as possible to involve women with disabilities at the decision-making table, and also make sure that we empower them so that every innovative approaches or technology that we develop for climate resilience, the women with disabilities can also use those.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Naomi. Okay, so in 2 minutes, very quickly, I'll go back to Dr. Udo to give us some key recommendations as it pertains to accessing healthcare services. Thank you.
Okay. To be able to address the issues that I discussed, we need to have an inclusive approach. Inclusive approach means that we need to invest a lot in research on women and girls with disability, we already know that you cannot have a good solution if you don't understand the problem. And so if we want to be able to meet the healthcare needs of women with disability, we need to have more research on them. The second thing is we need a lot of policies, law, and budget allocations for women with disability. There is the need for the government to invest in making sure that buildings are accessible, reproductive information are accessible, sexual and reproductive health is also made accessible to them. Buildings are accessible so that they can be comfortable to access buildings and be able to afford for healthcare. There is also the need to have partnership. Government, civil societies, research institutions all need to come together to be able to have a holistic approach to the issues that women and girls face when it comes to assessing their healthcare. And lastly, there is the need to empower women with disability, women and girls with disability. There is a need to empower them economically. There is a need for them to have their agency so that they will be able to take decisions for themselves. If they are economically empowered, they can be able to afford for their health needs. They would not need to depend on people. If they are educated, they would also be able to take good decisions. They will be able to understand every action that they take. And with this, their health will improve. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Udo. Okay, so at this point, we will take, I think, just a minute from Madam Beatrice Epia Mahmoud as well.
All right, so key recommendations. So first of all, as we review Beijing Declaration, there's a need to adapt a twin-track approach to gender equality, to achieving gender equality and gender parity. And also there's the need to have targeted interventions where there's the need to have targeted interventions for women with disabilities, as well as mainstream their unique needs into mainstream programs. There's also the need to ensure technological advancement and inclusiveness of women with disability, and the technology transfer from developed countries to the underdeveloped countries. For instance, Oh Can My Eye can help me as a visually impaired to read, but as an average woman with disability in Ghana, I cannot afford it. Then there's also the need to implement existing legislations and policies with clear targets and indicators and proper monitoring on women and girls with disability. And I want to end with a quotation from my favorite scholar, Amartya Sen, who says that people should be given the real capabilities to do and to be what they want to be and value. So if women with disabilities are given the needed resources, the needed capacities, we will be able to live and do whatever we so value. And by so doing, we will be contributing to the globe, to Ghana, and to the whole world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks a lot to our speakers for walking us through the challenges women and girls with disabilities face globally, not only in Ghana, and also giving us key recommendations to take home to ensure that in developing our policies and initiatives, these are not left behind. So at this point, we have put together a documentary that actually interplay all of these thematic areas that were touched on and how they affect the woman with a disability. So please stay tuned and let's take a look. Okay, it seems we are having a little of technical hitch. Okay, so when read off when you are ready to go, please draw my attention. Okay. So at this point, I think we've almost come to the end of the program. We will invite Madam Juliana Ifia Mahmoud to give us a summary. I'm sure we talked a whole lot about issues. Mine should be a little way as to what exactly is the take-up. So we'll call on Madam Juliana Ifia Mahmoud, the Executive Director of BOA Ghana, just put together what the key actions are, or the takeaway, or the action points that we need to give time for people to. Okay. All right. So before Madam Juliana, you come in, I will give room about 5 minutes room to maybe five people. If you have any questions, something that is bothering you, you need to understand something, just let us know, and then you can ask our able panelists. You can raise your hand. Hello, any question? Any contribution, recommendations? I'm sure there are other women with disabilities who have equally joined, and you may have something to say, some recommendations that you think, no, I think this hasn't been mentioned and it needs to really be looked at. Is that something that anyone, and our men who have joined, you are equally welcome to speak as well. Okay. If there's no question, no contribution, no recommendations to give, then Madam Juliana Ifia Mahmoud, please, you can come in and then do the recap for us.
Okay, so hello everyone once again. First of all, I would like to say a big thank you to the panelists and to the moderator. Actually, they've imparted me a lot as a woman with visual impairment. Whatever they've said, ranging from employment, poverty, political participation, and leadership, to the environment, and then climate change, and then its impacts on us, has really affected me much, because when I put myself into whatever they are saying, then I think it really fits well, and they've really elaborated and really demonstrated the true challenges that women and girls with disabilities in Ghana go through day in and day out in trying to survive and in trying to fight for their fundamental human rights. So as the keynote address speaker said, women with disabilities in our diverse ways need to be bold about whatever that we do. Yes, we have our rights, we have our privileges, the laws are there to back us. But if we don't have the confidence, if we don't have the boldness, the capacity to rise up for ourselves and demand for our rights and our freedom, yes, people may advocate for us, but it will not come to pass. So today, what I want us all to take home is about the recommendations that our honorable panelists talked about. So when you take Dr. Nami, for instance, she talked about the intersectionality of addressing issues pertaining to women and girls with disabilities. And I think it is a great point that we should all look at and then champion, because as women with disabilities, we have our diverse needs, we have our diverse impairments that comes with the different challenges or barriers that we encounter in our day-to-day activities. It may be access to health, and then it may be even when it comes to gender violence. I may be raped as a visually impaired lady, and then the pain that I'll go through will be different from a lady with physical impairment who has also been raped. So yes, we are all persons with disabilities. So sorry for the inconvenience. So we may all be women with disabilities, but because of our diverse impairments, we face different barriers. And so when we use the intersectionality approach to address these issues, it will go a long way to help us. And then most importantly, the inclusivity approach. Yes, we need to adapt that approach because when you look critically, most all the panelists talked about how women and girls with disabilities are being excluded in mainstream society and even in their families. So when we do the inclusive approach where women and girls are being researched on and people get to know more about us, about our needs and our challenges, they would better include us in whatever that we do. More so, when we talk about budgetary allocation, it is very important that I want every stakeholder who is here to take note of it. The needs of women and girls with disabilities comes with its own extra costs. And so when we are allocating budgets for projects, for implementation of policies and programs, we should factor into consideration the unique and diverse needs of women with disabilities. This will go a long way to assist in whatever that we do. And as Auntie Beatrice said, we should be intentional in including the needs of women with disabilities in whatever that we do, and to make policies and programs that better
I'm a
suit them.
two-time road accident victim, resulting in my disability.
Genevieve Amakojim, a woman with a physical disability, speaking.
A few months after the second accident, my husband's attitude changed.
The Voices of Women and Children with Disabilities in Ghana presents Unseen Voices, Accelerating Action for Ghanaian Women with Disabilities, a documentary on the challenges facing women and children with disabilities in Ghana.
Ghana, a nation striving for progress, a tapestry woven with the dreams and aspirations of its people. But for Ghanaian women with disabilities, the promise of equality often remains out of reach, their voices unheard, their potential untapped. International Women's Day 2025. A global call to accelerate action for gender equality, celebrate the achievements of women worldwide when their voices of Ghanaian women with disabilities face
Okay. So hello, I think we seem to have a bit of a challenge playing the video. The internet connectivity is not really helping at all. But all the same, you can visit our website, VOA Ghana at gh.org, and the video will be there for you to actually watch it. We'll put it on all our social media handles. I think coming up also, we'll have it play on national televisions as well, for us all to understand the intersectionality when it comes to these issues that have been talked about. So at this point, we would like to thank everybody for coming here. Everyone who joined you, thank you so much. We we really appreciate your time and your effort to actually spend the whole, I think, an hour and 30 minutes with us. I believe that we have all understood, at least to some extent, the challenges when it comes to women and girls with disabilities, as we all review the Beijing Declaration. So we thank Madam Beatrice Equia Mahmoud. We thank Dr. Augustine Anami. We thank Dr. Rita Udo as well. And we thank all those who joined. We thank AWDF so much. They ensure that we were supported financially to be able to partake in this event, and then to be able to fish out all the issues as it relates to women and then girls with disabilities. I believe the conversation will not end here. As we go, let's all be champions of change. Let's all add our voices to ensuring we may come from women rights movements, we may come from other organizations. Now today, if you didn't know, now we know that these are the issues when it comes to women and then girls with disabilities. And as such, when we go back home, when we sit behind our seats of decision making and all, let's ensure that these voices are not left behind, as the SDGs actually stimulate. So we thank you all once again for spending time with us. We are truly grateful. Thank you, and have a lovely day.
Inclusion in the unique needs of the diverse impairment groups, so that when a lady with any form of impairment suffers abuse or violence in any form and then comes to report, their unique needs would be addressed without any barriers. And then legal aid services should also be made available to ensure that women with disabilities who face violence have access to legal practitioners who would support them to seek justice, and then the medical costs involved and even the court charges, so that their cases can be addressed.
Knowledge is power, but for women with disabilities, access to even basic information about their sexual and reproductive health is often denied.
And looking at young girls who will have to start menstruating and all that, most persons without disabilities, they will tell you they get to learn about menstrual health from pieces of papers that were given to them. How is the student or the young girl who is blind able to access this information just like the ordinary young person would?
Patience Atula, Programs Manager. Speaking.
How dear is the service from the person? I remember I have 3 children, and there's a medical center just around me that everybody goes to. I wouldn't go there because of my condition, I need a specialized So I have to travel a whole distance to the bigger hospital to go for antenatal, and that is very costly. And then we are looking at information. So how are women with disabilities able to even access information about these services? Additionally, are they sensitive to the needs of the woman with a disability? I remember when I was pregnant with my second child, I think somewhere in my 7th month, I fell down and I had pains in my pelvis. So I went to the doctor and I told him that because of the pains, I can't get onto the examination bed. And he was like, so how did you manage to get yourself pregnant? How well do they even know the unique needs of these women to be able to attend to them? So that you don't hear remarks like, what brought you pregnant? Why are you even having sex in the first place? Or generally health professionals shying away from giving you services. So these are basically some of the challenges that we face. So in terms of
Hey
policy, I
God,
think we
people
have
can't
beautiful policies
tell
already in
nonsense.
existence. What we need to do is to review these policies to ensure that they reflect the unique needs of women with disabilities so that we are equally captured. Because if we say make a whole new policy, usually when it happens that way, implementation becomes a problem. But let's rather have them in the mainstream policies so that as we are implementing to benefit everybody, patients sitting here are equally benefits because mine is equally included there. But usually when you separate it, then it looks like, okay, let's deal with these people first and then we come back to you. So what we just need to do is to revisit them and ensure that the needs of women and girls with disabilities are equally included.
Economic independence is key to empowerment, and Madam Mrs. Akia Mahmood is testament to the talent, drive, and resilience of women with disabilities in Ghana. But the path to employment is often fraught with obstacles, discrimination, inaccessible workplaces, and a lack of supportive policies.
Most women with disabilities are not highly educated, and therefore they are not able to apply formal jobs. Persons with disabilities are seen as those that needs to be staying at home, then people providing arms for them or supporting them. So they are seen as those who cannot work. And then another challenge is also that workplaces are not accessible for these women. So you realize that there's an office which is at the fourth floor of the building. There are no ramps there, there are no lifts to enable this woman who is a wheelchair user to have access to the building. And then when it comes to the informal sector, too, you realize that most of these women do not have startup capitals to set up their own businesses. And when they go to seek a financial support from the credit facilities or the banks, they see them as people who are
Priscilla.
unproductive, so they
Yeah,
cannot
got to
work
speak
to
on
repay the loans.
We are urging Ghanaians to remove the intersecting barriers, and we would gladly contribute our quota to the development of the country. For instance, I have gone through the struggles, and thanks to some individuals, I'm now working. And as I'm working every month, I contribute to the development of the country through the taxes I pay. And because I'm working, I'm able to meet the disability extra cost. And so my situation will not be too alarming as compared to a woman who is unemployed, who has no skill, and is also taking care of a child with cerebral palsy.
Climate change is a global crisis, but its impacts are not felt equally. Ghanaian women with disabilities are among the most vulnerable, facing heightened risks during extreme weather events due to limited mobility, lack of accessible information, and inadequate support networks.
Because of climate change, the weather is hotter now. So when we go out without sun protective lotions or protective wear, it makes us feel the impact of the sun rays more, and it leads to a lot of discomfort, such as sunburns and in some cases, skin disorders like cancer. There are sunscreens or there are lotions that have the protection for our skin.
Zainab Adams, Administrative Assistant, Ghana Association of Persons with Albinism, speaking.
It is not easily accessible to us. Sometimes an NGO will donate some to the organization, that is Ghana Association of Persons Living with Albinism, and then they would share it amongst us. And it doesn't come frequently. So sometimes when you get one, it takes a long time before you get another. And most of us, our livelihoods are not that great for us to say that we are buying it ourselves. And most of us do work in the sun, because some of us sell foodstuffs, some of us do all sorts of things that leave you at the mercy of the weather. So I think that they could add sunscreen to the National Health Insurance drug list to make it easily accessible to us, because in a way it helps.
So we need to even enhance the capacity of duty bearers within the climate change space. For instance, if there's disaster, how are they prepared also in terms of the reasonable accommodation needs of women with disabilities? You go with release items. Do you also go with white paint, wheelchairs, hearing aids, sign language interpreters, sign cream products? These are very critical. Or provide for alternative care for people, women with disabilities or people with disabilities in terms of climate change adaptation and also in their daily living.
Unseen voices is a call for change, a call to accelerate action and ensure that Ghanaian women with disabilities are no longer invisible, no longer marginalized, but are empowered to fully participate, shaping their own lives and the future of their nation. It calls for systemic shifts that recognize their rights, value their contributions, and create a truly inclusive Ghana where every voice is heard and every life matters. The voice of women and children with disabilities in Ghana, VOAC Ghana, the leading advocate for the rights of women and children with disabilities, is calling for collaboration and support to champion Ghana's work in creating a more inclusive and equitable society. To learn more about VOAC Ghana and how you can get involved, please visit www.vowacghana.org or contact 0553 45